There was a time when winning 14 Grand Slams made you the greatest men's tennis player who'd ever lived. Then Roger Federer won 20. Rafael Nadal won 22. Novak Djokovic won 24. The big three didn't just raise the bar, they took the bar, launched it into another damn universe, and left the next generation staring up at numbers that looked impossible to reach. But now, I think that chase has officially begun. Carlos Alcaraz is 23 years old with 7 Grand Slam titles. Jannik Sinner is 24 with 5. And I'm not asking whether these two are going to become the next great players in tennis. That question has clearly already been answered. They have separated themselves from their peers. The question now is much bigger. Can Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner actually catch the big three? Because when you really look at the numbers, this might not be as crazy as it sounds. Let's start with Carlos. At roughly the same age Carlos is now, Rafael Nadal had 6 majors. Roger Federer had 4. Novak Djokovic had 1. Carlos has 7 major championships. He's already completed the career Grand Slam. He has multiple titles at 3 of the 4 majors, and at this stage of his career, he is ahead of the Grand Slam pace of Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. Jannik's path is different. At 24 with 5 majors, he isn't quite on Nadal's early pace. He isn't on Federer's. But you know whose territory he is in? Novak Djokovic. And that should scare the hell out of everybody. Because Djokovic is the ultimate reminder that Grand Slam races aren't decided at 24 years old. Novak had 12 majors when an elbow injury derailed his 2017 season. Then he came back and won 12 more. Half of the greatest Grand Slam resumes in men's tennis history came after the biggest injury or interruption of his career. And that brings us to Carlos. His current wrist injury is significant. It cost him Roland Garros, it cost him Wimbledon. But history tells us that injuries do not automatically end an all-time trajectory. Federer missed significant time and came back to win majors in his mid-30s. Nadal battered injuries throughout his career and still reached 22. Djokovic lost a significant portion of his prime and still got to 24. The big three weren't great because nothing ever went wrong. They were great because they survived long enough to keep coming back. And that is the challenge Carlos and Jannik are facing now. Because talent? Yeah, that's a check. Grand Slam success? Yeah, that's also a check. From Carlos winning his first Grand Slam at the 2022 US Open through Wimbledon in 2026, 16 majors have been played. Carlos has won 7. Jannik has won 5. Novak has won 3. That is 15 of 16 Grand Slams won by 3 gentlemen, 93.7%. And the only exception was the 2026 French Open won by Alexander Zverev, a tournament where Carlos didn't play because of injury and Jannik was physically compromised due to the heat. Think about that. The Big Three era didn't just end one day and disappear. Novak became the bridge from the old empire to the new one. And even while Novak was still winning majors, Carlos and Jannik were already taking 75% of every Grand Slam available since Carlos won his first. So what happens when Novak is finally gone? Because when you first hear somebody say, what if Carlos and Jannik win 84% of the Grand Slams available to them? That kind of sounds ridiculous, right? Until you look backward. From Roger Federer winning Wimbledon in 2003 through Carlos winning his first major at the 2022 US Open, 77 Grand Slams were played. Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic won 63 of them, 81.8%. For nearly 2 decades, if you showed up to a Grand Slam and your name wasn't Federer, Nadal, or Djokovic, well, good luck. Now Carlos and Jannik are sitting at 75% together already, and they've been doing it while Novak Djokovic was still around, winning 3 more majors himself. So, is 84% aggressive? Yeah, absolutely. But is it insane? I don't really think it is anymore. especially when you consider what happened once these two truly became the two best players in the world. From the 2024 Australian Open through the 2026 Australian Open, Carlos and Jannik won 9 consecutive Grand Slams. 9. That streak was finally broken at Roland Garros under extraordinary circumstances. Carlos wasn't there due to a wrist injury. Jannik wasn't physically right due to heat exhaustion. Then 2026 Wimbledon came around and Jannik won again. So now let's do some dangerous math. Carlos currently has 7 major championships. Jannik has 5. Let's say for the sake of argument that together they control 84% of the Grand Slams available for the remainder of their careers. And let's say they split those titles evenly, 50-50 between the two of them. If we use roughly 36 and a half, the age around which the big three won their final majors, as the end of their championship window, these projections actually get ridiculous. Jannik Sinner finishes around 24 Grand Slams, tied with Novak Djokovic. Carlos Alcaraz? Yeah, around 29 Grand Slams. Now, hold on just for a second. I'm not predicting that Carlos Alcaraz will definitely win 29 majors. That would be a ridiculous prediction. Tennis doesn't work on math and spreadsheets. Injuries happen, new stars emerge, motivations change, bodies break down over time, and maintaining dominance for another 12 or 13 years is infinitely harder than maintaining it for 2 or 3. But that isn't the point of the calculation. The point is this. The numbers required for Carlos and Jannik to catch the big three are no longer mathematically absurd. Carlos doesn't need to become some tennis player we have never seen before. At 23, he is already ahead of the pace of the 3 greatest players we have ever seen. Jannik doesn't need to have been the greatest 20-year-old ever. Novak Djokovic wasn't. He needs longevity. What he needs is health. And he needs the second half of his 20s and potentially his 30s to look something like the player he has now become today. But there is one massive problem for both of them. Each other. And that may ultimately be the most beautiful part of this entire story. Every Grand Slam Carlos wins is potentially one Jannik doesn't. Every Grand Slam Jannik wins is potentially one Carlos doesn't. If Carlos reaches 20, how many did Jannik stop him from winning? If Jannik reaches 20, how many did Carlos take from him? But we have seen this movie before. Roger Federer made Nadal better. Nadal made Novak Djokovic better. Djokovic forced Federer and Nadal to evolve. They took Grand Slams away from each other, sure, while simultaneously pushing each other toward heights that tennis had never seen. That is the paradox of greatness. Your greatest rival may be the reason you don't win more, and also the reason you become good enough to win as much as you do. Carlos and Jannik don't need to become Federer and Nadal. They don't need to become Nadal and Djokovic. They don't need to become the quote-unquote next big three. This is their story. 2 players, 2 completely different styles, 2 different paths. Carlos is the artist, the improvisation, the athleticism, the variety, the ability to turn a point that should already be over into something you have never seen before. Jannik is pressure, timing, precision, relentless depth, controlled aggression, the feeling that every natural ball is eventually going to become his ball. And they are young enough that neither one is a finished product. That might be the scariest part. We spent years wondering what tennis would look like when the big three were gone. Maybe we were asking the wrong question. Maybe greatness didn't leave. Maybe the lineage simply changed hands. Roger Federer won Wimbledon in 2003 and opened an era that will consume more than 80% of the Grand Slams available for nearly 2 decades. Novak Djokovic became the final guardian of that era. And before he was even completely out of the way, Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner arrived. So, will they catch Federer? Will they catch Rafael Nadal? Will either of them reach Djokovic's 24? I don't know. And quite frankly, nobody does. But for the first time since the Big Three made those numbers look untouchable, we have two players young enough and two players good enough and already accomplished enough that we actually have to ask the question. Carlos Alcaraz is 7 majors into the case. Jannik Sinner is 5 majors into the case. And if history is about to repeat itself, we may not be watching 2 young players trying to become great. We may be watching the first chapters of 2 careers that are about to spend the next decade chasing tennis immortality. The Big Three set the numbers 20, 22, 24. But now, the chase is on. Welcome to Sports In.